The purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. It is no substitute for professional care by your doctor or your qualified healthcare professional. Never disregard or delay professional medical advice because of something you've heard on this podcast or in any linked material. Guests who speak on this podcast express their own opinions, experience, and conclusions. Dr. Shirley neither endorses nor opposes any particular opinion discussed on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast have no relation to those of any academic, hospital, practice, institution, or other entity with which Dr. Shirley may be affiliated.
Welcome to Forever Fab, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty. This podcast is curated by Dr. Shirley Madhere, MD, as the definitive source of holistic wellness through beauty.
This episode of 15 Minutes of Fab on the Forever Fab podcast is dedicated to gratitude. And the title of this episode is simply, With Gratitude for You. When I created the Forever Fab podcast and its mini-series 15 Minutes of Fab, my intention was to have a creative outlet where I could explore some of my non-surgical passions, hence the acronym FAB, F-A-B, which stands for Fashion, the Art of Living Well or Wellness, and Beauty, my North Star, of course. Born out of curiosity, the expression of creativity, and the desire to empower and inspire, the podcast has completed its 7th year, having earned its status as an award-winning podcast. There have been many people who helped to lift me up. There have also been many who put me down in a number of ways, but they too served as my teachers. Forever Fab was a way for me to take that energy and offer it to help build up others. For the podcast duration, since November of 2018, I thank the One of One production team, both past and present, all of those who helped bring the podcast to fruition and be among the top 200 podcasts globally. And of course, I thank you, my listeners, who have supported me throughout nearly a decade and have encouraged me to keep going for so long. Forever Fab is starting to feel a 7-year itch, however. There's so much more to learn, discover, and embolden. So as of this podcast episode, it will be on hiatus. It is my intention to refresh the mission, converse with new and exciting guests, and continue the mission to help listeners live a more beautiful and fabulous life, all with renewed verve and vigor. I do not know how long the podcast hiatus will be, nor may I promise you of my return. What I do know, however, is that the next iteration of the Forever Fab podcast, if it comes to be, will be better than ever. Again, I am grateful to all of you who listened, learned, laughed, to those who found strength, courage, resilience, and joy, to those who made changes, took action, and decided to live their best life now. I thank you all from the deepest parts of my heart. This concludes this episode of 15 Minutes of Fab on the Forever Fab podcast. Thank you for listening, and until next time, whenever that may be, stay beautiful and forever fabulous, inside and out.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Forever Fab, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty, curated by Dr. Shirley Madhere, MD. Live beautifully and help make the world a more beautiful place.